to this conversation. This
Hello?
conversation.
Hi, Howard.
Hello.
Hi,
How are you?
Ruben.
Conversation.
Hi.
How you guys?
Good. So what's on the menu tonight?
On the menu tonight, I send you guys note. I will start with a guest speaker. I will be a guest speaker today. And we all were guest speakers. Ruben was, a couple other guys. Howard, you haven't been, so maybe one day you'll be a guest speaker as well.
Maybe.
All right. All right, the topic today, the anxiety and confusion these days, and a short and long-term solution because of what happens in the Middle East and I guess overall in the world. So let me just present to you guys, let me present to you my view, and then we'll have a discussion a little bit. I'll take maybe 5-10 minutes to present my view. I saw on the internet a discussion where the Muslim lady was talking to she was in a panel and she was responding to another Muslim lady who was saying Islam is a peaceful religion and Muslims are peaceful and it's not just to, attack Islam. Well, the lady at the panel, I forgot her name now, basically responded to her that she is right. She's saying, you're right. I mean, the statistics show that 85% of Muslims are peaceful people and only a minority, 10-15%, are extremists and perhaps violent, like participating in Al-Qaeda, ISIS, Hamas, you name it. But then she said, if you consider there's a 2.2 or something billion Muslims.
1.5 billion. Yeah, it's 1.5 billion Muslims.
1.5 billion Muslims, if you multiply by 15% minority, they'll get you like, let's say, numbers are approximately 300 million Muslims. That's roughly population of the United States. So she said, if only 300 million violent and the majority, 85-90% are not militant, are very peaceful, good people, then she said example that only my very small minority, 19 people, hit with 2 airplanes, high towers in New York City, where the majority of the Muslim, overwhelming majority, did nothing. It was irrelevant. She said Hitler and Nazis in Germany represented also a small minority, and majority was irrelevant. And as a result of that, 20 million people were dead, including 6 million Jews. The Stalin and the communists also represented minority. And they killed 20 million people, put them in a Siberian gulag jails, while majority was irrelevant. He's talking about situations where silent majority means nothing if they don't do something to stop the minority, who in this case can represent a big number. So to me, when
I put the link in the chat to that lady. I saw it myself also.
You saw it too? Okay. That's good. Thank you, Ruben. So whoever reviews the video can use the link Ruben just apply. So the way I look at it, I see it a bigger than a problem. I said major and minor, like short-term and a long-term conflict. It's not a conflict to me between Israel and Hamas or Israel and Palestinians, whichever one people want to look at it and dissect it. To me, it's a conflict between light and darkness. There's a higher level of, it's not a conflict between Judaism and Islam. It's not a conflict between people for the land. There's a fundamental point. So if you would imagine the world as a big circle or the big globe, and that world, the big globe, inside of that, the whole, 8 billion people in the world, and inside of this globe, there's a small circle representing 1%, roughly 1% of our population, which is Jews. Then, what I see that each of these circles, each of these spheres has a charter to look at. The big circle, the world, has to address certain issues the world has. And the small circles, the Jews, this is just my view, have to address issues that it has. So what I would talk about in the next just couple of minutes before we discuss it, it's light against darkness, it's good against evil, it's life against death, it's love against hate, and it's God against chaos. So this is in order for individual person to find serenity and peace, many people nowadays, especially among the Jews, find anxiety and worry. Obviously, Israelis are worried about the war. Americans worry about the demonstrations, British, Europeans, I mean, all over the world, people are nervous. In order to find serenity and peace, we have to look not into the Judaism or Islam or other religions, but we have to look, as I see it, God gave all humanity certain ways to go beyond the individual and collective fears and find out it doesn't all depend on me, but it depends on a higher power. For Buddhists, it's certain way they understand it. For Muslims, it's another way. For Christians, something else. For Jews, something else. But they all believe in something above personalities. There's a people atheists and that do not believe in that, and I happen not to belong to that group, so I'm going to leave this group alone, and I would say I'll talk about people who believe there is a higher power. And so the war between Israel and Hamas, and I don't see that as a war between Israel and Palestinians. There's many issues between Israel and Palestinians, which I think relatively easily solved. To me, it's easily solved, but of course, it's not that easy because it hasn't been solved. But this war between Israel and Hamas. So if the Israel wins, and I believe it will relatively soon win, then the question will be, what will be a bigger problem? Let's say now Gaza becomes peaceful, and the West Bank, Judea, Samaria area of Israel becomes peaceful. What's going to happen next? Is the rest of the world will be like those 100,000 people demonstrating in Europe, in London, in New York, in Chicago? If they continue demonstrating and showing that Jews are apartheid state occupiers and they have to be gassed and they have to be burned and the state of Israel have to be wiped out, and if the Jews are wiped out in Israel, then they will reach out for the Jews in America and Europe. And if the Jews have to go to Mars, then expeditions will be sent to Mars to wipe them out there. So it's not a matter of the land, it's a matter of basically the darkness doesn't like the light. The darkness doesn't like the light. The light makes the darkness feel uncomfortable. So in order for the light to be strong, it has to be pure. And we, Jews, have our own share of things to address. For example, we have to show an example. I believe we're chosen people. We're not better than other people, not worse. I'm not saying we're superior, but we're chosen for certain missions, just like Indians chosen for their missions, Christians for theirs, Muslims for theirs, Buddhists for theirs. We have a certain mission. Our mission to show an example to the world how to behave as a human beings, how to be lights. And that includes big things and small things. We're not supposed to be walking down the streets and throw the wrappers from the ice creams on the floor. We're not supposed to be yelling and screaming at 1 o'clock in the morning when other people are sleeping or disturbing them. It's a small thing, but it's a behavior. It's a small thing. Also, on a bigger scale, we have to also look at ourselves and understand what are we missing? Why? We're the key that God, in my view, gave to the world in order to turn the big engine to go. The world, the 10 billion people is an engine, and Jews, 15 million for 1% of the world, roughly, is a key. That key is not going to fit and turn the engine unless this key is refined and made well. And we have to do something about it to clean it up. I also, in conclusion, will say, I don't think, like many Jews believe, that we have to be completely perfect in order to deserve a title of chosen people and in order to bring so-called redemption to the world. I think God is merciful enough for us to say, I want you to come better. I don't expect 100% perfection. I expect it to be a 90% good, 95, 85, something. we cannot be completely angels. So God will give us a break if we're not completely perfect. But we have to do better. And to me, to be better is basically to combine this world with the upper world, to combine the mortality with the divine, to bring the world, the word of God, which is for Jews a Torah, for a Muslim it's a Quran, for Buddhists, whatever they have, for Christianity, whatever they have. We have to bring that word to the world. So we have to study the scriptures. We have to learn it. We have to share it. We have to discuss it, not debate, but like we have in our discussion club, talk with Muslims to appreciate that Quran is basically a peaceful document, a peaceful religion, and can taken out of the context, concentrating on some verses that maybe not can be controversial, is minimizes overall spirit of Islam being peaceful. Just the Judaism, you can find points in the Torah that many people would disagree. We have to look at the bigger picture and understand the spirit of the Judaism, the spirit of Islam, the spirit of Christianity, the spirit of Buddhism, and to understand that they're all in unity. And when the darkness prevails over light, it because all of us, humanity-wise, does not take the spirit of what God gave us in different manners and ways in different nations, but because we pick and choose the bad things and what we see the bad things, and we put ourselves against each other instead of looking commonality between us. That is what I think the solution of long term is. Not a short term, Israel has to prevail against barbarism of ISIS, of Al-Qaeda, of Hamas, Islamic Jihad. That's barbarism. And I think 85%, 90% of Muslims would also agree with that. Unfortunately, sometimes if it was your own brethren, it's very difficult to say that your brother is wrong. And I think Muslims partially subject to that. They just cannot state that something is wrong because it's my brother. How wrong can he be? Jews have the same problem. And I'm sure Christians do too. We all have a tendency to stick up for our own, whether it's right and wrong. I think that is where all have to work together, all of us, not Jews, not Muslims, not Christians, but all of us together to find a common good, which we have, that unites us. So that is what a short-term solution has to prevail. The murderers of Hamas have to cease to exist. And a good and peace-loving Palestinian people, I believe, will come through. And a tranquility and a peace, I would say, between Iran and Israel, the peace will happen soon. When people won't believe it, it will. I believe it will. It takes time because God gives us this test. Unfortunately, we're too slow to accept it, but I think it will happen. On the long term, it's not Israel against Islam or Christians against Buddhists or this against that. It's light against darkness. And light and the darkness acknowledges the fact that we have to look at each other as human beings and understand the strength and goodness in us for all the nations. That is a long-term solution. For us, specifically the Jews, we have our job to do. Muslims have to do theirs, Christians have to do theirs, Buddhists have to do theirs. We have to do our job. We have to work. We have to develop our economy. We have to have airplanes and trains and cars and parks and rivers and lakes. We have to do common earthly things, but we have to also spend time to learn our scriptures, to understand what is divine, how does divine links with the earthly. And in order to do that, if we are totally scholars of Torah, we have to do a little bit more studies. If someone is completely doesn't know much about Torah, for us, for the Jews, maybe one time, once a week or once a day, open up the Torah and read for 5 minutes, whatever chapter you happen to come across. Make a small little step toward that. This is my view. So light against darkness challenge has now arrived. You have to, it's time to choose sides. It's time to take sides. If the time has come, not just to talk about it, but actually do some action. And that action is peaceful learning and demonstration to the world and to ourselves that short-term defense against barbarism has to take place. You have to have strong military, have a strong army to defend yourself. But you also have to look in the bigger picture and to find out light has to prevail because darkness doesn't like light. And darkness always resists and react against the light. We have to bring light to the world. And I believe that is what the challenge for us. If we don't do that, if we don't go to synagogue, if we don't learn Torah, if we don't do this, if we only, with the excuses, we're too busy, we have working, who has time for that? That's excuse that darkness is looking for to tell us, if you don't do your job, don't be surprised a long-term solution is not coming.
Cool.
That's my view, guys. So now I'm going to open for your thoughts. Reuven, Harvard, what do you think?
Yeah, there's, I don't know if you saw it, there was a very good discussion, very similar to what you're saying, by Rabbi Daniel Rowe, R-O-W-E, from England. The real reason Jews are hated. I put it in the chat, a second one. And he says just precisely that. He says, why does an interaction between Jews and Palestinians bring hundreds of thousands of people out in the streets, but like 500,000 Arabs are killed in Syria? That's so sad, nobody shows up. 1 million people displaced or killed in Yemen. It's sad, no big deal. 1 or 2 Arabs could be killed, and all of a sudden everybody's marching. You said it's because it's the same what you said. Light, darkness hates light. And the Jews represent light. They represent God, and also God's requirements to live a certain way. And the people who are hedonistic, anti-God, and hate everything that's good, they hate the light. So we represent the light, and they go into a rage over us because dead Arabs in Syria doesn't mean anything to them. But the Jews represent God as he's shown his hand in history. No matter how they can try, they just can't get rid of this feeling that there's just something mysterious about the Jews. And on one hand, maybe God really is watching over them. On the other hand, oh no, it can't be that. The only way to get rid of them and their influence on the culture and what did Hitler say? They brought conscience into the world. And it's a superstitious idea. He wants to get rid of conscience. So the Jews represent conscience and the law. And so, people of the darkness, they hate that. And they think if they can just kill us off or smash us down, then they can do whatever they want, and they don't have to have any feelings of guilt. But the Zohar says very clearly before Mashiach comes that people who speak the truth will be hated. So we're in that time. It's a hard time. The sages said they didn't want to live through this time, but Zohar also says that the king of Persia will try to destroy 2/3 of the world. So I guess that's the Iranians, and they clearly want to take over the Middle East. And probably the reason they incited Hamas to this thing is because of that deal that Israel and Saudi Arabia were making, because that would strengthen the Saudis against the Iranians because they hate each other. Yeah, it's a big mishmash, but fortunately we know that Hashem has his hand on everything, and everything will work out according to his plan. He already promised us that we win in the end, so.
Amen. Yeah. Amen. Howard, what do you think?
It reminds me of one of the JLI courses that I took about anti-Semitism. It's not a total explanation, but one of the things that was talked about there was that a basic premise of Judaism is a moral code. What's right, what's wrong, what you're allowed to do, what you're not allowed to do. And for those in the world who don't want to be told what to do and what not to do, or how to do it, or when to do it, or if to do it, Obviously the Jews are an anathema. And so whether it's justifiable or not, if you want to hate somebody, how much justification do you need to do that?
Yeah.
There's a writer,
Just for example, if you're driving 1946 Ford and you see somebody who's got a ritzy new BMW, Rolls Royce, whatever, it's not hard to imagine that the person who's driving the old jalopy would be envious of the one who's got the nice car and says to himself, why don't I have one like that? I should be entitled to have what he's got. And
envy.
obviously that's not justifiable because one of them has done something far more productive than the other one has, and they each have what they earned, but that doesn't stop them from being jealous.
Yeah. Well, a good point, Howard. Well, coming back from the as Romy mentioned, for the bigger picture about light against darkness to a conflict today, I was thinking, it's for a conflict right now, I'm all for peace between Palestinians and the Jews and Palestinians and Israel. I'm all for peace. And I am looking forward. I don't go to historically who came first. Jews came to Judea or Palestinians came to Judea. I don't care even to analyze that. This is the situation right now. And there's enough fingers on the hands to point out one way or another. That is not productive. It's not going to lead anywhere.
Yes.
The point is right now, that's the fact. Should Palestinians all belong in Jordan? Should Jews all belong to Sweden? You can break it any way you want, but in any case, it causes only divide, not unity. Today, you have to acknowledge that right and wrong, Jews are here, right and wrong, Palestinians are here. How can I accommodate them together? And I think there's a way to do it. In order to accommodate it, the first step, and that's for any protester from one on the other side, they have to acknowledge, do these people have a right from now on to exist? Do Jews have a right to live in Israel? And do Palestinians have a right to live in Israel? Let's call it Palestine. If they say yes, they do, then the next question will be, okay, let's sit down at the table and figure out, we're going to live in Haifa, you're going to live in Eilat. We're going to live here. So we can always figure out in discussions.
Well, you're talking about rational, but the one key thing I remember very distinctly is William Nichols. He wrote a book on the Christian anti-Semitism. He was a Christian minister and then became a professor of philosophy in Canada. But he said anti-Semitism at its root. Well, he said two main ideas. One was that when the Christian rebels against the law, he can't hate Jesus because that's too dangerous. So he turns his hatred against the one who brings the law, the giver of the law, the one who held the law, and that's the Jew. Similarly, the Muslim can't hate the Muhammad if he's tired of all those restrictions. But he can hate the Jew who brought the Torah. So at its root, it's people who of darkness hate the light. The second thing he pointed out is that for most anti-Semites, they didn't come to their hatred logically. It's an emotional reaction, and therefore he said you can't talk them out of it logically because they didn't get to it logically. If they came to a conclusion or decision logically, then you could use logic to dissuade them of it. But if they didn't come to it logically, then logic's not going to work. He's had an interesting take on it. He said, what would work? He thinks basically they have to do tshuva, they have to repent. people who have been addicted to this hatred.
Well,
It requires a
well,
change of heart.
well, that's how people feel, and it makes sense, not logic or emotions. But what I'm saying, when you see the interview on the television, on the CNN, on Fox, on MNBC, on BBC, on any network, just pick one. What I don't understand is that the discussion, I find out they come in from both sides, a lot of words, and no really, to me, they don't come to the point. It becomes discussion. Each side wants to justify its reason. The Jewish side will justify its reason, and the Arab side, Palestinian side, will justify its reason. I don't understand why, when the, let's say, BBC will have, probably they might have the shows. I'm sure they do. You find them on YouTube, probably. I just didn't see that. To have two guys, one Jew and one Palestinian, and sitting in front of a BBC commentator, and before you go to the details of what happens to historically, just asking the question: your name is Chaim, and your name is Mohammed. You're Jewish, you're Arab. Tell me, you, Chaim, do you agree that in this land we have to negotiate you between two? If you're in charge, you, Hamid, and you, Mohammed, are in charge. Do you agree to negotiate and find a way to live together? Whatever territory, 50-50, 60-40, 70-30, 10-90, whichever way you decide. Do you agree? If Chaim says, yes, I agree, that's a step. Mohammed, what about you? If Mohammed says, I agree also, that's the end of conversation. The rest of details. But Muhammad say, no, I'm not going to answer this question. I first want to talk about 75 years of occupation. Say, this is not going to go anywhere. Interview is over. You first to say, do you agree these two nations have to come together and work out a division plan between you or not? If you don't, there's no point to go first. That's one thing. That's very simple. The whole conversation could be 2 minutes on the television and it's done. And then you can even say, let's go sit down in the room, let's open up the map, and let's say, Chaim, how do we see that? Mohammed, how do you see it? And let's find out, can compromise. If you don't acknowledge the right of another person to exist, interview is over. We can all go home and the fight will continue forever until you kill each other. Another thing is, just a specific example. That's right now, this I also don't understand. Let's say the hospital right now in Gaza, I forgot the name of it. The hospital is surrounded by now by Israeli forces. It's surrounded and they're within 20 meters from the hospital. 20 meters, it's like from here, I stretch my hand and it's 20 meters, very close. And then that's talking about television, and Israelis will say, Hamas is underneath the hospital, and they're also in the hospital, and there are sick people and babies in the hospital, and they use them as a human shield. And then, and that conversation go back and forth. And it goes for a long time, human shield, human shield, human shield. And after a while, people lose track, lose understanding what exactly you're talking about. Human. To me, it's very clear. Instead of just saying this, okay, let me ask you this question specifically. If the army surrounded the hospital and they was in 20 meters, why don't they just walk in? Why don't they just walk in? Well, if they've been here for a week, roughly 1 week, they surrounded the hospital and they didn't just move in. They are not in Haifa somewhere. They have to travel for 4 hours to get there. They was in 20 meters, takes 20 seconds to walk into the hospital. Why didn't they go in? If they're such a monsters to call indiscriminately people, they can walk into the hospital and shoot everybody.
But that's logical. And these jerks, they don't care about logic. They're people of hell. They're people of darkness.
Oh, why?
And
Why
you
would
gotta
it come?
understand, there's a psychological mechanism called cognitive dissonance. Let's say somebody's been just indoctrinated. The Palestinians are good because they're poor and they're dark skinned. And Israelis are bad because they're lighter skin and they're wealthier. Therefore, in their pseudo-Marxist woke theology, therefore, Israelis have to be bad and Hamas has to be good. Now, suddenly Hamas does something horrifying. Well, either you have to start thinking maybe they're not so good, but you don't want to give up your belief. And all your friends have always believed the Palestinians are just great guys. So what they have to do psychologically is the Israelis have to be made super, super evil, really bad. And that way you can keep your attachment to Hamas psychologically. Because now these people are so bad, they deserve what they get. That's the way the psychological self-forgiveness works.
Ruben, that makes
You know,
sense.
so-
But my
So, you know, it doesn't matter what you say, no logic is gonna get these evil telecasters to start admitting the truth. They are just looking for, they're just looking for clicks. They're looking for people to log on and give good feedback. And if they don't go along what the far left says, then they're gonna get all this
but
negative stuff. So they just go along with it.
it makes sense, but that's not exactly the point I'm trying to make. My point is, I'm pointing the finger not at the CNN or BBC anchor, not even the Arab representative that's in part of the conversation. I'm pointing the finger on the Israeli guy, on the Jewish guy. The Jewish guy is sitting there. I want to be very specific. There's three people sitting at the table: the Arab, the Jew, and the BBC guy. Why the Jewish guy will say to him, instead of using a lot of words about the history, they say, why do you think we didn't go, tell me, commentator, Mr. Smith, why do you think we, after sitting for 1 week around the hospital, didn't go
But they'll
in?
blow it off anyway. They'll blow
What
it
would they
off.
say?
I mean, yeah, you can try. It's worth saying, but they'll blow it off.
I never heard them saying. How would they blow it up? What would they say?
The Jews are bad, the Israelis are bad, disproportionate. You're gonna have civilian casualties. We need a ceasefire because it's so sad and all these babies will be hurt.
Okay,
on
okay,
like that.
and I'll continue. Let's say we have let's simulate this. You talk about BBC commentator, and I'll talk to the Jewish guy sitting there. I'll say, okay, if we're bad, if you're saying there's no Hamas there, why don't we, if we're so bad, why don't we go in and kill everybody? If we are monsters Jews that kill innocent people, why don't we go to a hospital? We're 20 minutes away for 1 week. What kept us from walking in and shooting everybody?
Because you're afraid of getting negative feedback. You're afraid of you know
Well,
bad
Howard?
press.
Howard, what did you say?
afraid of the blowback.
What?
Yeah.
Okay, I'm gonna walk into the hospital. Okay, I can walk in and tell everybody, okay, well, let's say if I don't kill everybody, if I'm a monster, I walk in and say, okay, guys, we have ambulances outside there. Let's get an ambulance and we'll drive you to another hospital with a great care. Here it is. Why wouldn't they say that? Because do they want to kill these people in the hospital or they don't? If they want to kill them, they can walk in. There's no Hamas there. They can walk in and kill them. If they don't want to kill them, are they afraid of them that the sick people and babies will shoot at them?
Possibly.
So Israelis who already leveled most of the northern Gaza now came to one building, the hospital. They're afraid to walk in because now the patients there will now shoot at them. They were not afraid of Hamas. They were not afraid to bomb the tunnels. They were not afraid to send the forces into the Gaza against the fighters of Hamas. But go inside the hospital, they're afraid because those nurses and doctors might shoot at them. The answer to that, they don't walk in because they're shot at from the hospital by the Hamas. If the Hamas wouldn't shoot at them, they'll have no reason to go to the hospital. So they're standing around the hospital because they don't want to go to get killed. So there's a Hamas there. Now the question is, if you agree that Hamas is bad and people in the hospital are innocent civilian, talk to Hamas. Tell Hamas to stop shooting. Why do you tell Israelis they're standing around the hospital? What is it doing wrong standing around the hospital? They don't let people live.
From these perverted minds, their attitude is Israeli is always wrong. And they took Palestinian land, even though there was no such thing as Palestinian land.
So they're saying they'll duck the specific question. They'll go to
They
general.
hate the light, and they're going to hate Jews, and they're going to try to make Israel look bad. And also, mostly nowadays, almost all media find that they have to choose sides. If they want to get readership, then they have to choose either left or right. There's no middle anymore. Nobody interested in that because
But
everybody's
the,
worked up.
but the Jewish side, I think, still misses a point. Specific questions. It's too much generalities. Like I can say again, back to I like to have specific example. If I'm sitting with a BBC guy in a BBC studio, and the guy's asking me,
Okay, oh, well, wait. Okay, left. I get your point, but this is all theoretical. These people aren't gonna say it. If you think they should say it, then you can write a letter, but yeah, I
I'm
mean,
going to write a
it's
letter.
a nice idea,
I'm going to write a letter. Let's write a letter, guys. If I would
but
say,
it is all
well, but it's
so
to me. I mean,
theoretical.
this is how I think. If I would tell the guy what his name is, the British guy, he is interviewing everybody. It's kind of nice. He's a nice guy. I would say, listen, if I'm a terrorist and I'll right now stand there and I said, okay, you're now hostage, and then I'll start shooting from the windows at everybody that's come to me, and I'm in your room, and the neighbor around there, also my buddies that protect me from getting killed. How they gonna come and kill me without killing you? I'm in the same room with you. I'm shooting out the window at everybody with a RPG, with a anti-tank fire, and I have plenty of ammunition. I can kill. I already killed 100 people around from my windows. And you, Mr. BBC anchor, is sitting right next to me. Do you expect people from outside come and get me without killing you? What are you gonna do? That's a question that specifically, how would you, BBC anchor, if your studio was hijacked by me, how would you have other people, police, army from outside, get me to save you without killing you in the process? That's a question never asked. I think that's the type of question we specifically, so people understand what does it involve when somebody gets hostage hijacked in the same room. And then you can go in to kill the guy because next to him was him 20 centimeters, and there's a guy who is a hostage or several of them. How are you going to get them? And if the guy had no guns, just keeps him a hostage, it's one thing. But if the guy has a gun and he shoots from his windows 5,000 rockets, and every rocket kills people or may kill people, you have to go against this guy. No question about it. But how can you? If you, Mr. Anger, sitting right next to me, the terrorist, would you want them to come and get me without killing you? That's a question to say. Specifically, put yourself in the shoes of the hostage. What would you do? So,
Before we get off the line, when is the election been put off to?
I think it's end of December. I don't know exact date, but
Okay.
it's not. It was November, Ruben, but it's like end of December right now.
Okay,
So, all right. For the next time, this is like little politics, but I want to end this presentation. I'm Jewish, so of course I'm taking the Jewish side, but not against Arab or against Palestinians. I'm for the Arabs, Palestinians. I'm for peace. And I think the time has come to take these bigger pictures and for peaceful Arabs to speak up and for peaceful Jews and Arabs to get together and so on.
they
That's time
won't
has
speak
come.
up because they'll be shot. They're afraid.
Well, in Saudi Arabia, they're afraid. In Emirates, they're afraid. I mean, they're not entirely in Gaza City. I mean, there's other Arabs in Egypt. Can they speak out? They're not as much repressed as the people in Gaza. They can tell,
Well, they don't care enough to take the risk.
Well, maybe they should start doing it and to come in. Let's say I don't have any problem to Saudis to come and be mediated between the Israelis. They're friendly with Israel now. They're friendly with the Gazans. Let's mediate between them.
Mhm.
For the next time, guys, so we'll leave it on a peaceful note. Let's not, whoever watches this, don't think that we're against the Arabs or against the Jews. We are for everybody. We're for peaceful solution of conflict. We don't know how to solve it, but we will propose to start thinking about. For the next time, guys, any particular topic you want to present or anybody who is watching our recording wants to do, next Tuesday at 8 o'clock, Israeli time. This is our sign up things. Oh, how can I do it? Okay, here it is. And we only have a few seconds. So on this point, guys, thanks for joining us. I did all the talking. Next time I want somebody else to do the talking, maybe Howard Buell. And with that, have a good weekend and we'll talk soon.
Okay.
Can you
Alright.
send me an email with the
I'll
note
send
in
you. I'll send you the copy. Yeah, I'll send you the copy.
Okay,
All right. Video will be posted. Thanks.
peace.
Peace. Shalom. Salam.